Hey everyone, and welcome. Ever wonder why we actually get hurt? Well, today we're going to break down the real science behind injury. Let's dive right in. You know the feeling, right? You're out doing your thing, playing a game, maybe just going for a run, and bam, you're hurt. And it is so easy to just chalk it up to a clumsy moment or, just plain bad luck. But what if I told you that most injuries aren't random at all? What if they're actually predictable and maybe even preventable? Okay, so before we go any further, let's make sure we're all on the same page. When we talk about an injury, we're not just talking about pain. The scientific definition is actually a reduction or a loss of your body's function or structure. It's something measurable that impacts how your body works. And that brings us to the most important point. An injury is almost never just a single unlucky event. It's usually the final result of this complex web of different risk factors all coming together. Think of it less like getting struck by lightning and more like a pot boiling over after you've slowly turned up the heat and ignored all the warning signs. So to really understand that web of factors, let's start by looking inward. The first big category of risks are what we call internal risk factors. These are the things you personally bring to the table in any physical activity. And this covers a whole range of things, from the obvious, like your age, to stuff you might not even think about, like your psychological state at the time. Every single one of these can tip the scales a little bit closer to injury. Let's look at a couple of key examples. Okay, take age. This is a great example. When you're a teenager going through a growth spurt, your bones can actually grow faster than your muscles and tendons can keep up. And as you can imagine, that creates this temporary imbalance in your body that can mess with coordination and stability, making young athletes way more vulnerable to getting hurt. Now this one is huge. Seriously. If you've been injured before, you are statistically way more likely to get injured again in the same spot. Why? Well, that original injury can leave behind these little deficits in strength, or it can mess with your brain's sense of where your body is in space. That's called proprioception. It basically creates a weak link in the chain just waiting to break. But it's not just about what's going on inside you. The world you're moving through plays a massive role too. And these are what we call the external or environmental risk factors. These factors are all about your environment and the choices you make within it. Are you wearing the right gear for the job? Are you playing on artificial turf or natural grass? Does your bike actually fit your body? And a really big one, how much are you training and how hard? All of these things can dramatically change your risk profile. And this slide just shows the two sides of that coin perfectly, right? On one hand, external factors like shin guards are literally designed to protect you from harm. But on the other hand, the nature of a contact sport, like that soccer tackle you see, introduces massive external forces that can be the very source of the injury. Okay, so we've identified all the ingredients for an injury, the internal risks you bring and the external risks from your environment. But what's the actual tipping point? How do all these factors finally come together to cause actual harm? Well, it generally happens in one of two ways. The two main mechanisms of injury are called acute trauma and cumulative trauma. And really, the biggest difference between them comes down to time and force. Acute trauma is sudden, it's high force. Cumulative trauma is gradual, caused by lower forces that are just repeated over and over and over again. So let's look at acute trauma first. This is what most of us picture when we think of a classic sports injury, that one specific dramatic moment where something just goes wrong. This X-ray of a fractured ankle is a textbook example. An injury like this happens in an instant. It's caused by a single force that's just way greater than what the bone can handle. The onset is immediate, and trust me, you know exactly when it happened. And of course, ankle fractures are just one example. That sudden ankle roll that leads to a sprain, a hard hit that causes a concussion, or pulling a muscle during an explosive movement, these are all classic acute injuries. They all result from a single traumatic event. But here's the thing, not all injuries are that dramatic. The second path to getting hurt is a lot sneakier. This is cumulative trauma, the slow burn that can catch you completely by surprise. I absolutely love this analogy because it makes the concept so crystal clear. A car crash is acute trauma, but no single drive to the grocery store wears out your tires, right? It's the repeated stress over thousands and thousands of miles that eventually does them in. That is cumulative trauma in a nutshell. And I guarantee you know these injuries. Tennis elbow doesn't come from one single bad swing. It comes from thousands of swings over time. Shin splints don't pop up from a single step. They build up over miles and miles of running. These are overuse injuries, where the damage from all that repeated activity starts to outpace your body's ability to repair itself.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? It's that injury isn't just fate. It's not bad luck. It's a formula. It's the sum of your internal risks plus your external risks, all acted upon by either a sudden trauma or a slow, cumulative one. And the most powerful part of understanding that formula is realizing that you actually have control over a lot of those variables. So I'll leave you with this question. Knowing all this, what's one risk factor in your own life that you can take action on today? Whether it's something simple like warming up properly, or getting your bike fitted, or maybe finally doing the rehab for that old injury. Understanding this science is always the first step to moving smarter and ultimately safer.